happy today to have a special guest with us all the way from Florida in the United States, Coach John Mahoney, who's presently the coach of 212 Sports Academy. Coach Mahoney has coached at almost every level, NCAA Division I at 3 different universities. He's also been one of the head coaches at IMG Academy, which is one of the most well-known international academies for players in the United States. So thanks for joining us today, Coach.
David, it's great to be on here, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. To get us started, why don't you tell us a little bit about your roots? Where do you come from? How did you get into basketball? Let everybody know kind of how your journey started.
Well, in short time here, I'm originally from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, right outside of where you're from, David. As we go back far away, I've always been intrigued by basketball. My family's been in basketball. My father was an athletic director. So my brother was a high school coach, a college player. So I grew up in that environment. So always wanted to be in some way, somehow involved in basketball. So that's my love for the game. And, got an early start as a high school coach at Olsh, Our Lady of Sacred Heart, as a young high school coach, one of the youngest high school coaches in the WPL back at the time. So took off from there.
Okay. And also maybe you could touch a little bit on our relationship, like how we know each other. I think people here have a little bit of interest in that. It's kind of interesting, I think, for our kids to meet the coach, one of the coaches of the coach. So maybe you could talk a little bit about how we knew each other and how our relationship developed.
Well, David, I always try to get David to play for me. I really liked, I fell in love with David's passion for the game and his hard work and dedication. And he wasn't at our school. And I always tried to get David to come to our school to play for us, but he wouldn't balk. So I ended up just working him out and would make him meet me at the gym with his good friend Greg. And we would always go to the gym and at the YMCA down in Sewickley, and keep trying to get him to come with me. But if he didn't come with me, I was going to try to make him a better player, which he did that on his own.
I certainly appreciate all the time you spent with us, Coach. It was, I think I couldn't have reached without those mentors, early in my career in high school, yourself, a couple others. Like, I don't think I could have ever accomplished some of the things that I accomplished as a player, and now having the opportunity to coach. So I'm certainly appreciative of that.
Yeah, you did good, man. You did good.
Why don't you talk to us a little bit? I know some of the people in the community here are interested to hear about how you got involved in college. How did you get into college coaching? You mentioned that you were one of the youngest high school championship coaches in Western Pennsylvania at the time. How did you segue from high school into collegiate coaching?
Well, it was by accident, really. I never planned on it. Being a coach at Olsh, we were successful. We had it going on. We were rolling. The program was being built, and it was a very vital and very positive atmosphere and a positive place to be and a positive place to play. But something was in me that I wanted to see what else was out there. And if I could challenge myself to go to that next level, and the next level would happen to be a junior college at Mount Aloysius, and decided to leave, a very tough decision to leave Olsh to go to Mount Aloysius and be their coach. It was a very tough transition. And it was a difficult transition, if you understand. They're a 4-year school at the time. They just went 4-year, but they were still playing junior college basketball. So you're trying to get kids who aren't junior college kids, but 4-year students to survive academically. So, but it was fun. It was challenging, and we did a great job. My staff and I have turning that program around. And my last year, we went 4-year NAIA. And we would play a lot of the Division II schools in that, and went 500 that year. So it was exciting to do that. And then I got a call from Jim Boone one night, wanted me to be on his staff at Robert Morris. So I was very happy to be at Mount Aloysius. I I was in control of the whole program. I ran everything how I wanted to do it and how I wanted to build it. And it wasn't anything I wanted to move on further, but this was something that my wife and I spoke about. And, I always blame her. I said, because you wrote me a note and said, your dream is my dream. Let's go do this. And we did it. And, went from one place to another, from Robert Morris to Duquesne to West Virginia to Michigan. So it was a good ride.
You've mentioned a couple of places you coached at. Obviously, Duquesne is another Division I local college from our area, but also West Virginia and Michigan. Those are two teams that have had a lot of success at the highest level of collegiate basketball. So, who are some of the most influential coaches that you've had the opportunity to work with? Who do you feel has had the biggest impact on your coaching career from the coaching standpoint?
Well, John Beeline would definitely have to be that. He's had the most impact. Kind of opened up my eyes to basketball. We, as young coaches, you're just you're like a stealer. You're just stealing drills or stealing plays or whatever, and trying to find your way around. With Coach Beeline, it was a philosophy. It was a way of doing things, and his way is way different than a lot. And it could be related to a little bit how the Europeans do it over there, because it's very fundamental. And when I was at West Virginia coaching with him, and I remember being at home at a get together, and one of the coaches I was talking to was like, it must be amazing to be with Coach Beeline. Like it's some magic he's doing there. And I'm like, listen, you have no clue. I'll tell you what we do. You won't do it and you won't believe it because it's too easy. But it was the fundamentals that he emphasized. Because if your players are fundamentally sound, no matter how less talented they are than the other team, you have a chance to win. And that's how we were. Our West Virginia teams weren't as talented as, say, UConn or Villanova, who had pros, but we would beat them because we were more fundamentally sound. So he's had the most influence on my beliefs and how we structure our program and how we teach things, to our kids.
Okay, let's transition a little bit and let's talk about your present endeavor. So, right now you've started your own basketball academy, 212 Sports Academy. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what that is?
All right, 212 degrees is in the water boils. I think it's 100. Is it 100 degrees Celsius for you guys? Water boils. So 212 degrees water boils. At 211, water is very hot, but it doesn't boil. So that one extra degree, will get the water to boil. Boiling water can produce steam. Steam is powerful enough to move a car or move a locomotive. So we influence our kids to give that one extra degree on the court. In an effort, is it working? Is it shots? Is it whatever it is? That one extra effort can lift them from an average player to a good player to a great player. We take that one step further of off the court, of one extra degree, an extra act of kindness. And it doesn't have to be much. Kids don't understand how much power they have. And one extra act of kindness, of a smile or holding the door for someone or saying please and thank you and acknowledging someone who's there, goes an awful long way. So that's what we wanted. Our program is the genesis of it, and how we founded it and how we approach everything we do with our kids. I learned a lot through the years. I wanted to run my program the way I wanted to, with the beliefs that I've learned from Coach Beeline on the court and from what we take off the court of serving others. It's big to help others, and it's important for us today that we need to not think about ourselves, which kids do so much, but thinking about other people and helping them and serving them. So that's the kind of crust of it all, of what we do.
Okay. I think you kind of hit on our second question, which was what are some of your main objectives at 212 Sports? But maybe you also want to elaborate a bit on what you think differentiates 212 from other academies that might be in the area or other American sports academies. Like, what do you think makes 212 a unique experience for players?
Well, there are several other ones out there that are good, and there's several others that aren't so good. And the reason why is why they doing it. And the reason why I'm doing this is to help other kids. I can do whatever I want, however I want to do this. Obviously, we need to generate revenue to run a place accordingly. But I can take a kid who maybe not have the means to come to a place like 212 and to help change his life. So, he would normally not be able to do something like this or afford it, but we can get him the means to afford our place and to then get him something that he never dreamed of going to college. And we did that once last year, and we'll do that again this year and every year. So I think my experience in college and my experience in the post-grad business of working at IMG for eight years gives me a little bit of edge over other guys who have not either worked in colleges as much as I have or in post-grad as much as I have. I think I have a little leg up on that. And what the real meaning of this is and what we're trying to do, we need to help kids get to where they need to be and how to do this and how to better prepare them for college. When a kid comes at 212 degrees, my goal is for him to be ahead of the freshman when he arrives on campus. He wants to be kind of like a sophomore because he went through his freshman year at 212 degree academy. That's the whole crust of this. And they're well prepared, not only off the court, but off the court. Our time management is big in college. As you know, you have to manage your time so well with getting rest is important and drinking a lot of fluids and taking care of your body. These are some aspects that kids have to learn. That's very just as important as going into the gym and shooting for 2 hours or working out. So those are things I think we do a little bit better than some of the other places.
Okay, and finally, with regards to 212, what's kind of your long-term vision for 212? Like 3 to 5 years down the road, where would you like to see 212 in terms of your vision and dream for the academy?
Well, right now we're just basketball, men's and boys basketball, and we'd like to branch out into other sports, not just boys but girls and women. So we have several other sports we're looking to bring to the fold, and then translate that into the women's side of the game too, so we can help both sides of it. That's a 5-year goal that we would have. Say golf or soccer or volleyball or tennis that we would have also under our umbrella. But the things are moving, progressing nicely, I guess you can say, in year 2. And we continue to progress. I think we will be able to complete our goal.
Okay. Kind of staying in line with what we're talking about, I know a lot of kids here in Asia are becoming more and more interested about the possibility of going to play in the United States. We ourselves have sent a few players to the United States, a couple of more kids from our area, I think this summer, are going to play in the United States. So coming from somebody that has the experience working with not only American youth players, but also international youth players, maybe you could touch on a little bit what aspect do you think players here, especially international players living outside the United States, need to really focus and work on to be effective when they arrive in the United States?
I think there's several aspects that they need. I think the terminology is one of the things that kids, don't understand with terminology that we may use over here that may be different over there, or in some parts of our country is a big thing. We've had kids from Japan, China, and Russia come to play for us in our academies, and that's one of the biggest things is the English and their language. The barrier was just hard for them to overcome. So learning the language, I think, is a big key, and then learning the terminology and understanding it. Once you get that done, or you need to learn how is it played. So for a young man, and I would tell them to watch as much basketball as they could, to see how hard or how different. I think the American game is a little bit more physical and a little bit more faster than some of the European or Asian kids we get are accustomed to. So those are a couple things that I think the language barrier and understanding and speaking the language and, watching and learning until you get over here to experience playing against other American kids. I think that's the best thing that they can do before they would get here.
So if a player made a decision that in 12 months or 24 months they were going to go to the United States and they had a season of time to prepare, what would you advise a player here really work on, prepare themselves to get themselves as ready as they can for when they hit the ground there in the United States?
Well, again, starting with what we just left off, the language, trying to learn as much of the English language as they can, understanding it first, and then being able to communicate that back would be best. I would definitely have to, because they have to understand what's going on. And some coaches aren't patient enough with the kids. If they only have one or two or three kids that don't understand them, they may not have that patience to make sure that they understand. We had our players from Japan or that don't understand Google, our Google app translator comes very handy that we're trying to help them, understand. Two is working on their fundamentals. Fundamentals is just so important, and it's so mundane. It's so boring sometimes because they want to do all this fancy and high experienced drills, but staying with your fundamentals, build a great foundation for you in ball handling and being able to handle the ball, being able to pass the ball, and importantly, being able to pivot. Pivot correctly is very, very important. Playing off 2 feet. I don't know if it's a problem over there, David, but it's a big problem over here that our youth don't understand how to play off of 2 feet. They're always playing off of 1 foot, and it gets them in trouble in that. So it's another big emphasis that we have that we try to do. What I do with kids that have come into our program is once they apply and they're accepted, we start sending them drills for them to do. I want them to do some of the drills that we have. So when they get here into our program, they're familiar with it and they've been working on it, so we can help them master it. We'll also send a weight program back. We'll send a conditioning program back that we've got from a friend of mine from the Memphis Grizzlies, and I like an on-court conditioning program instead of going out running outside. Basketball's played on a court inside, so it simulates sprints and stops and times and all that stuff. So those things combined, we tie it all up. I would do that for them. But if they don't have me or someone else like that, just, working on the fundamentals, working on the English language, understand and speak it, and being in top condition.
Okay. Other than the language, what are some cultural differences a player might expect to encounter coming from Asia to the United States, from your experience that you've seen?
Just, the speed, if they're not, the speed is a little bit faster. It's a little bit more physical. I think the rules are the same in Asia than they are here. And I know European rules are different. FIBA rules are different than our rules. Some of our, our young men coming from Germany or Switzerland, and those countries have an issue with the rules that may be different. But just getting accustomed to the rules over here and understanding the game, I guess, more so would be a big, again, watching, good basketball. Don't watch bad basketball over here. You can get in trouble that way too. So, doing those things again to educate yourself to understand the game as much as you can. I think that would be helpful.
Okay. Now, let's also talk. I know over here at the in Asia, the NBA is extremely popular. In fact, Thailand, I think, was 7th in the world in terms of NBA viewing demographics. So I know a lot of the kids and parents I've told them that you have had experience coaching some players who play in the NBA. So I think that they would like to hear a little bit about that. So let's start off. How many NBA players have you coached in your career? How many of them are active right now?
I believe it was 10. I think it's 10 or 11, but 10 guys that I've coached, and And I mean, there's more that I recruited too that have played in the NBA. We have three active. I have three active players right now: Jonathan Isaac, Anthony Simons, and Bruno Fernando, that are still playing in the NBA. You know, so yeah, three.
Now, you mentioned to us that you had been a part of the recruiting process for Tim Hardaway Jr. I know over here, Luka Doncic is one of the most popular players in the international circuit. Obviously, Tim Hardaway Jr. kind of developed into what his wingman this year. So maybe you can talk to the kids in the basketball community here a little bit about your experience recruiting Tim Hardaway Jr. at Michigan.
Yeah, this is a great story because it was I'm at the University of Michigan, and we're recruiting at events that their high level players are at in the arena. So we're looking at those kids, and I get a call from a former player of mine, Adrian Townsend, who played for us, and he coached college for a while, but he asked me to go see a young man play. He was a sophomore. It was April. He was a sophomore still. And I said, who is it? He said, it's Tim Hardaway's son, Tim Hardaway Jr. And they're playing up at North Hills, which we were at the Peterson Event Center. I'm like, there's nobody out in the North Hills for me to see. But as a favor for him, I ran out there to go see him play. Timmy was 6'2", $150 maybe at the time, 150 pounds. And wasn't very talented, but, he was young. So after the game, I told his AAU coach, please tell them Coach Mahoney from Michigan was here. Well, his high school coach finds out and calls me and says, hey, I'm his coach. And I find out that his high school coach and I is a Steeler fan. So that was our connection. So he would call me during football season. He'd call me every Monday to talk about the Steelers, and NCAA rules, we're not allowed to call underclassmen yet. So he would put the phone on to Tim because he was standing there. That was illegal because he called me and then put him on. So I developed a relationship because of his coach. And then I would go down and see him practice or play, and, a couple times a year. And he kept getting bigger and stronger. And, nobody was in there recruiting him. We were the only school going in to see him. In his senior year, we've developed a relationship with the parents, Tim Sr. and Tim Jr. and Mom. And he's 6'4.5", 6'5" maybe. He's gotten bigger. His shoulders are getting big. He looks like a man. And, it was about the halfway point of his senior year. I think some schools started to come in to see him, but we were in there way, way before and had our relationships with them before this all came about. But that's how we got him. It was a relationship started by his coach, really, that kept it going for me. And then just being patient with him and watching him through, his high school career growing and getting better and better. I never thought he'd be this good, though. He's good.
You touched on it a little bit, but maybe some of our younger players aren't familiar with Tim Hardaway Jr.'s father, who during my generation was one of the best point guards of the 1990s. Did you have any interaction with Tim Hardaway Sr. during the recruiting process, and what was that like?
Every game, yeah. Dad sat with me at every game. He was very, very emotional. I used to tell him he's got to calm down a little bit. He was very hard on Tim Jr. For a while there. And but if young people, if you want to know who Tim Hardaway Sr. is, Google killer crossover. You want to learn how to cross over? Watch the videos of him. He had the best crossover in the NBA ever. It's unreal. So watch Tim Hardaway Sr. killer crossover. It's amazing. But yeah, we learned a lot from Tim. He was with I believe he's still with the Miami Heat organization, and we talk about once a year. We'll text and just check up and just see what's going on and anything we can do to help each other out. But it was great interacting with him and learning some aspects of the game from him and what made him such a great player, and how hard he worked and his craft.
Okay, another guy that you've coached that you said is active still in the NBA that we've discussed before in some of our own conversations is Jonathan Isaac. For those kids that may not know who Jonathan Isaac is, he's a player with the Orlando Magic, a lot of potential, especially as a defensive player. I think some people probably have him on the radar as a potential All NBA defensive player in the future, maybe even a defensive player of the year candidate. Maybe you could expand on your experience coaching Jonathan as a young player and then seeing him blossom and transition into becoming an NBA player.
Yeah, he was on track to be, definitely all defensive player team before his injury and that. And Jonathan's grown tremendously. And I was able to get Jonathan a little bit before for 2 years almost that we had Jonathan with us. And, when he came with us, he was very shy, introverted, skinny, a little insecure of himself, I think, because of his height. Some kids aren't comfortable being that tall, and very talented though. But he didn't know how to play the game. And I used to tell him that. And one day I just stopped practice and I said, listen, you have no clue what you're doing out here. And he just looked at me like, what are you talking about? I said, you don't know how to play the game. You don't know the angles we're trying to get to. You don't know where we want the ball to be on the floor. You don't know. All you're doing is just balling. You're not playing. You're not playing with your teammates. There's 5 other ones out there. So we get a good laugh about it now, but he understood what I meant. And, I saw him about a month ago, and man, did he get big. His shoulders, his body has just matured as a big man. But, it's fun to teach and help. You can't teach some of the things he had. I couldn't teach some of the athleticism that he had, but I could teach him the mental part of the game and what he needed to look for and where he needed to be on the floor to take advantage of his man or the defense and what they were giving him. So he was after that, he was a quick learner and very, very good and very nice to coach. And we had a lot of fun.
Okay. And also, what do you think are some of the qualities that you see that made these specific guys NBA players? Like, what are some aspects of them that you think?
I think everyone, you have to have talent. There's just no way. It doesn't matter. You could have I've had kids that were the hardest workers, but there's a ceiling. They were going to be a Division III player no matter what. It just doesn't. You have to have size. You have to have, and I guess you don't always, but your chances increase greatly if you have size and if you have some talent or athletic ability. But there's something in a lot of these guys that makes them a little bit different, and it could be work ethic, but it's something that makes them tick that makes them different. The competitiveness, something their edge. We had Anthony Simons played for us, and you run sprints or suicides or whatever you guys call them over there. And I think we were in practice for about a month, and then one of my assistants came over and said, Anthony hasn't lost a sprint yet. Did you know that? I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, he hasn't lost a sprint yet. And so we made that a little bit more known to all the kids that we're going to call him out, that no one's beat him yet. So to challenge him, but that's how he was. He wasn't going to lose even in a sprint, no matter how tired or if it was the beginning or the end of practice. So I think Jonathan and he and Bruno and, Satnam and Chris McCullum, some of the other guys, Darius Morris. Darius had a chip on his shoulder. He was angry at everybody who doubted him. And that was his drive. He was talented. He was a big point guard. He was 6'4", got drafted by the Lakers, but he had that drive of having a chip on his shoulder that no one's going to tell me, no one's better than me. And quick story about Darius that I love. I recruited him. He's out of Los Angeles, and I went to his high school to follow him around. And we went to his locker, and he opened his locker, and he had a schedule in it, and he had highlighted games or teams on his schedule. I said, "What's that? Is those big games or those, conference games or what are they?" He said, "No, those teams have guys that are ranked higher than me in ESPN's top 100." I said, "Oh," so he was driven to go be better than these guys. I think that's what separated him too. But those guys have something different that give them that edge besides being talented and some speed or height.
Okay. Now, before we wrap things up, let's take a couple of questions that people have given me that they were interested in asking you. So we'll take 3 of them. The first one, over here, 3-on-3 is starting to become more popular. And so one of our players would like to know, do you see 3-on-3 growing in popularity in the United States? and would eventually become another sport where possibly kids could get scholarships and so forth, the same they can as 5-on-5?
I hope it becomes popular over here because I think young kids and older kids need to play 3-on-3. If you're watching the Olympics right now, I love watching the 3-on-3 part of the Olympics. Young kids need to play. I think we do a lot of 3-on-3 with us. I'll do variations of 3-on-3, no dribble, or so only someone can score or whatever. Teach them how to play, but 3-on-3 is big, and we utilize it a lot. I don't know if it's going to take off over here, but I think it should. I think it should be in everybody's radar that this is an important aspect of the game that we should learn, especially our young kids, that play as much 3-on-3, play it, hey, no dribbles, or only so-and-so can score. Put some stipulations on it when you do it. Watch the Olympics 3-on-3. I love it. I think it's very important.
Okay, kind of staying with the theme of the Olympics, we got a question over here. What do you think about the men's team USA and the struggles they've had so far in their preliminary games and then in their first game against France?
Well, everyone, I've read that the complaining about, that we don't, some guys were tired. There's no excuse. France was better. They play the game better by the rules. The NBA rules are different than the FIBA rules. The FIBA rules are probably better than the NBA rules. And I think, the instruction, we should be attacking it differently than we are, and playing it differently than what we are. And that's why, it's a little bit more physical. The FIBA is a little bit harder to play against, and we're not used to that. I think we need to realize that and adjust to it because I think it's a better game. I think, all these kids over here are getting taught so well for when they come over here. They have so much success. But I think we have the talent. We're probably more talented than the U.S. is, but we're not the better team. And we have to learn how to adjust to the rules that you're playing under to be the better team.
And then finally, we got a kind of a personal question. One of the players says that I work them really hard over here. I drive them hard. They want to know, when I was playing, did I work that hard?
Oh, man. David Bobalik was probably the hardest working young man that I know over here. That's why I love David. I wanted him to play for me because he was dedicated. David would never take a day off. He'd be in a weight room. He'd be in the court, on a gym, doing something with his game. And that's why I loved working David out, because his passion and his drive and determination were insurmountable. And that's why I made him a great player.
Okay. Hey, Coach Mahoney, I thank you for your time. Is there anything you'd like to say in closing to the players or about your endeavor there before we sign off?
No, just keep working, stay with the fundamentals. Fundamentals are important. We tell our kids over here to embrace the bore. The boring things are fundamentals. You want to do flashy things, and that's great, but the boring things are the fundamental parts of the game. And once you have your foundation, anytime you're in a game and you hit adversity, you're going to go back to that foundation. And those are the things that we work on every day.
Okay, Coach, thank you for your time. And we certainly look forward to working with Coach in the future. We're discussing some things right now, maybe some plans where we can bring Coach and his team to Thailand to see players from this region. And hopefully we can start the process of getting some players from here over to the United States, which is going to be paramount importance for growing the game here in Southeast, South, and East Asia. So thank you for your time, Coach, and we look forward to hearing from you again.
Appreciate it. Loved having you. Appreciate you taking the time to help your kids out over there. Anything we can do over here, let us know.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Coach.
Thanks.